It's the greatest mystery in literary history. A divisive question with highly contested answers. Who was the writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare? Welcome to Don't Quill the Messenger. Here's your host, Stephen Sable.
Welcome back, Quiller Nation, to a very much anticipated and promised episode of your favorite Shakespeare authorship podcast. As promised, I have invited back my lovely wife, Annie, to join me for an episode as we dive into Poem Unlimited, Hamlet. You know, a lot of people aren't aware that Harold Bloom's small little book about the play Hamlet called Poem Unlimited actually comes from the text, and it is Polonius who refers to Poem Unlimited when he is describing the players that arrive to the castle at Elsinore. And that's where Harold Bloom takes that title. You know, we all know there are a lot of very famous lines in this play. And it's interesting because some of them are spoken by actually peripheral characters. I mean, Polonius is not a peripheral character. He's a very important character. But in fact, it's Marcellus who says there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, for instance. Marcellus is just one of the guards on the watchtower. We only see him in the beginning, really, when he witnesses the ghost. And he kind of disappears like the ghost for the rest of the play. But there are so many famous lines in this Poem Unlimited, and I've invited Annie to this episode because she is currently in the process of learning the role of Hamlet, which she will be performing in June of this year, 2025. Annie, how's it going?
Oh, well, it is quite a feat, to say the least. I am at the point of feeling pretty comfortable with all of the major soliloquies, particularly with the cuts that my director and husband, Stephen, has put in place for this production. But I think it's one of the point when you start to feel good because you're like, oh, I got the big ones. I've got To Be or Not to Be. I've got Rogue and Peasant Slave. I've got all these under my belt. And then you realize that, my gosh, he still has so many other lines that he has to engage with other people, other shorter speeches. You know, it's magnanimous. It's one of those points where it's like, okay, I'm feeling good. I feel like I've covered everything. And then you're like, oh, nope, definitely have not spent enough time looking at that scene. And it takes you by surprise, I think, how many words he really does speak. So it's a lot. It is definitely the biggest challenge I have ever taken on as an actor. And we're just kind of at the beginning of the process as far as starting rehearsals with the rest of the actors. But I have known that I'm going to be playing this role for a while, which is truthfully probably how every Hamlet should be done. I think it would be a shame to actually start rehearsals with Hamlet and have him looking at the script for the very first time on the first read through. That's just a recipe for disaster. Because you need, if you're going to take this on, you need time ahead of time before anybody else enters into the rehearsal process. You need that time to especially learn the major speeches, but also just to get yourself extremely familiar with just who this person is and start establishing what his relationship is to these characters before they've even come into the fold. So yeah, we're at that point where the other characters have entered now. So it's time to see how I actually do now that there's more people in the midst.
Well, I specifically timed this episode because I wanted it to be directly after we've had our first read through of the play with the surrounding cast. We've cast our company, we've cast our season. And we've now taken 2 nights to go through the cuts and to read through the play together as a team. And I specifically wanted this episode to happen after that, but not too far into the process, because I think that it'd be great that at the end of June, when the run is over, that we do this again and talk about how you felt about it all and how it all came to be and what we end up with in the end as the product. But I do have some questions for you that have to do with your sort of process leading up to now.
Okay.
So you've known you were going to play this role for approximately how long now?
For about a year. We established that I would definitely be playing this role, even actually before we started rehearsal for last year's productions. I didn't start diving into preparation for Hamlet, though, until last year's season was done. Obviously, we have our Shakespeare season, and last year we did... I did a dual role season playing Kate in Taming of the Shrew and a witch in Macbeth. So basically, once that closed at the end of June of 2024, I had my Hamlet script already ordered and in tow and picked it up and started the dive into learning the script. I know Stephen has told this to me many times. He's told it to other actors plenty of times, but you start with the large speeches for any Shakespeare character. With Hamlet, of course, then there's usually double or in some cases triple the amount of long speeches that you have to learn with this role. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time to really get those speeches to the point where you feel that you are comfortable to deliver them. It takes a lot of repetition. There's nothing magic about my process. There's nothing like, ooh, this is the secret. It's repetition. It's repetition. I like to sit with the script for a little while, and repeat certain lines just over and over and over again until I feel comfortable with them. And once I get to a point of certain level of comfort, then I will add action. For me, that's not necessarily even just like, it's just, not blocking it for myself necessarily. That comes now that we're in like the actual rehearsal mode, but it's just doing it up on my feet, because that helps it all really sink in. I look kind of crazy now at work because I will take laps walking around my work office when I'm on a break at work, muttering lines to myself.
Said every actor everywhere.
So I get some interesting looks, needless
grocery
to
store,
say. Yeah.
wandering through Walmart.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Except when you wander through Walmart talking to yourself, people expect that. They just think that they don't know you're an actor. They just think you're just a regular Walmart shopper.
We have some interesting characters that hang around in my office building as well, so I kind of fit right in, I guess. Anyway, it is... it's kind of that point now where I will pick this is the one I'm going to look at for the next 20 minutes as I walk around my office building. And something about that, getting it up on the feet and walking while talking helps, or muttering to oneself, helps you to really sink it in, and sometimes it's even just pacing back and forth when I'm in my own living room or, pacing back and forth outdoors. So again, like there's nothing magic about it all, but it's something that obviously taking on this role is that you can't just do Hamlet saying, I learned all the lines. You have to do it and embrace Hamlet. So that's like the next big piece is like, it's not just enough to know the lines. You have to deliver them. And man, there's the pressure to deliver them well because everybody knows Hamlet. So I'm kind of at that stage where I'm going, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? Because there's a tremendous amount of pressure to deliver them and deliver them extremely well.
It took this long, like you never in the last, so let's say technically you began at the end of June because you really were in the middle of two shows and you really couldn't dive into it much at all until that season closed.
No.
So, if we go from the end of June till now, this being the beginning of April.
Mm-hmm.
So you had
9 months.
9 months that you've been working on it so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it took you till now to suddenly have the realization, oh shit, what did I get myself into?
No, I've had a couple of shit moments prior to that. But I think it's the, truthfully, the oh shit moments, I guess, a little bit bigger now again, because having brought in the other people, like the pressure's on, the feeling is, okay, I got to live up to this. There's a room full of people here now listening to me deliver all of these lines. And it definitely makes you cognizant of that. Oh, I haven't just been learning these for fun because, which is fun to learn all the lines for Hamlet. I'm actually going to be delivering them for a group of people. And I think it makes you very self-conscious of the fact that he speaks for so much of the play. So if it's boring, you're done, and you have to continue to make it exciting and enjoyable and imbue it with life throughout the entire duration of the show. So there have been the slight oh shit moments, but never anything. I think this is like the real oh shit moment of like, okay, this is real, and it did it. Yeah, it takes the entrance of the other people coming into the fold now and starting the rehearsals to make it very real.
So are you basically, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what I think I'm hearing you say is that the first audience that you're cognitive of, that you begin to sort of play for, are your fellow actors in the cast who are now supporting you, surrounding you, like no other role in history. Does a supporting cast need to cleave around the actor playing this role?
Right.
And I feel like what you're saying is you're suddenly very cognitive of that.
Extremely cognitive of that. And there's a feeling of, I don't want to let these people down. They agreed to be my supporters. I don't want them to have to be doing like major heavy lifting. I want them to know I've got this. Right.
But I think that one of the brilliant things about the play is that there are so many characters who do have to do heavy lifting. They can't just rely on you to carry the show.
Oh, no. But I mean heavy lifting as far as like having to support me, I mean, and truth be told.
Carry you through a scene?
Yes, exactly. Like, oh man, she's really going up. I got to rescue her, right?
Didn't you mean to say that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern go toot?
Yeah. Enough with the Rosencrantz and Guildensterning tooting.
I'm just saying the line. It's the line.
I know.
Horatio says they go toot.
They go toot.
Yes.
Good old elision. But yeah, so there is that very real, and it's interesting that you put it that way. Yes, absolutely. The first audience is that group of fellow actors that have now come to join this feat of Hamlet, which is kind of indicative of when Hamlet is engaging with the players when they come to Denmark in the scene of, he kind of superimposes himself upon this group of players and tries to be kind of part of their mix. Like, hey, I know a speech too, and can you do this? And I'll put in a line for you. It's kind of like, okay, yes, this is my group of players, and I've, they're going to, they're there to support me, and okay, but they're also here because they, like you said, there's a tremendous amount of great supporting roles here who do have to do some heavy lifting. The role of Claudius is also quite large in and of itself. I mean, it's definitely larger than some of the like large female characters in Shakespeare, because the female characters are generally far less have far less lines than the male characters, except for Rosalind and Cleopatra. Basically, any other female in the Shakespearean canon is Juliet. But those three, beyond those three, it's typical that obviously the females have less line load than the men. So Claudius is larger than a title female character. He's far bigger than Kate. So it's just like there are plenty of other characters that really do have a tremendous amount of contribution to this play. And then you go, oh yeah, but then half of the play is just Hamlet. So it is. It is the greatest work of dramatic literature ever, hands down. I mean, and I don't really think that there's anything else that can hold a candle to it. But that being said, there's a tremendous amount of pressure, like I said, to not just know the lines, but to deliver them extremely well.
Well, and I think one of the things that is interesting, you mentioned that the female roles in this particular play, Gertrude and Ophelia. No, the line loads are not immense.
No.
But the demands upon them as actresses, I feel, are very immense.
They are, absolutely.
And the character arcs of both of those characters are extremely dynamic compared to some of the other characters. I mean, Rosalind, you mentioned, is that is the largest female role in all of Shakespeare from As You Like It. But her character arc isn't really very steep.
It's a comedic character arc. I mean, that's a great comedy, and Rosalind is a fantastic character. But yes, you're right. I mean, it's so different in the tragedies, the very dramatic plays. But you look at the difference with the line load of like Ophelia to Rosalind. It's immense. But I think you're right. The dramatic arc that Ophelia faces, it's extremely tragic, but it's immense. And she is such a product of what happens to her, and a product of the influence that she has over her from her father to her brother to Hamlet. And she spends so much of the play as, not extremely, she doesn't have a lot of lines for the first part of the play, not a lot of lines hardly at all, but she is such an important part of it. And then it leads to when she actually does go mad, it's like this freedom. It's this opening up almost. It's not a good, like, positive freedom, but it's this sense of that her mind is gone and she has not that need to hold everything in any longer. I've played Ophelia twice, and that was
the next thing I was going to talk about. Is you also, besides having had the last 9 months to work on this script, you have some foundation in this play. And Absolutely. What I wanted you to share with the listeners is how has that played a part in your preparation, in your familiarity? Did that sort of, grease the wheels for you a little bit, having had past experiences with the play and having played Ophelia in previous production?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I did Ophelia for the first time about, about 17 years ago. So that was what began my, original. I had read Hamlet prior to that. I'd seen a couple of productions of it, but when I played Ophelia, actually that was when I first read Poem Unlimited. I always liked reading texts that were analysis of the plays that I was doing. So I picked up a copy of Poem Unlimited, and there's a special little chapter about Ophelia. It's a very short book, so it's not there's not a ton that Harold Bloom says, but what he does say is good. It's interesting character pieces and work.
It's basically just an extension of his chapter on Hamlet in
Invention of the Human.
Yes, but he realized, I think when he wrote that book, I think he realized, this play needs its own extra thing.
Yeah,
and then
he puts that into his introduction. Yeah. He said, I made that chapter too long. I realized I needed a whole book once I finished that chapter of Invention of a Human, right? Which is also a fantastic read. And ironically enough, I think we both have separate copies of both of those books.
Yes, we do.
So I think that's just, a case in point. That was one of those other we're soulmates moments, as we both come to this marriage with our copies of Harold Bloom and our complete works in tow, Anyway.
It is kind of funny. Actually, this just a side note, and I think the listeners will enjoy this. But just recently, I've added some bookshelves to our lives because we have so many books. And I've been moving books from one room to another, putting them in a new bookshelf, and have come across how many books we have multiple copies of the same title because of you having your own library before we knew each other and me having my own library before we knew each other. And then when we got married, our libraries combined, and we do have there's a whole shelf that's 2 copies of everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Anyway, though, so I'm rereading Poem Unlimited and that chapter in Invention of the Human now, as I also work on Hamlet, now again from the lens of diving into Hamlet versus diving into Ophelia. And my familiarity with the play has obviously helped a lot. When you look at certain scenes, particularly the scene between Hamlet and Ophelia, the, infamous Get Thee to a Nunnery scene, I found, I know that scene. That scene, is I've heard it enough time from the other end of playing Ophelia that the Hamlet lines are also there. It was very easy to come into that. But also just, I think, the overall familiarity with the play, just the understanding of, okay, this is what happens, then this scene happens, then this helps a lot, because I think it it's such a long play. There's so much that happens in the play, and I think it's one of the reasons why it is, if you're going to kind of dumb it down of why Hamlet is such an awesome play, it's like there's a little bit for everybody. There's love, and then there's the casting away of love, and then there's a ghost, and then there's sword fighting, and they even mentioned pirates at one point. So it's just like, and then there's this gravedigger who does this great little like song moment and brings some comedy into it. It's such an all-encompassing work of dramatic literature. But I think understanding just obviously how the play progresses has helped a lot too. And that has helped me to understand, okay, there are certain scenes that I know right off the bat are extremely physical scenes. And I want to learn those first. I want to have those lines really solid first, because I cannot go through the whole blocking process, which is what we're about to enter into now, and not be, if I'm stumbling over the lines throughout the blocking process, then that makes it harder for me to really get as physical as I need to be in those scenes, particularly with Ophelia, the Get Thee to a Nunnery scene. Both times I've done it were extremely physical, and it takes a lot of back and forth between the Hamlet and the Ophelia to discover, what can we do? What can we safely do? Discovering boundaries and all of that. Having never...
That's very true about the Gertrude scene as well.
I was just going to say, I've never performed the Gertrude scene, but I know right off the bat, having been in the production a couple of times, having seen it multiple times, having seen that play, that is also an extremely physical scene. That the arc of that scene is just fantastic. It's a fantastic, incredible scene. I'm so looking forward to doing it. But that is one that I've spent a lot of time on. I'm not, like I said before, the scene with Ophelia, I already knew pretty well. That was an easy one to get into. But the one with Gertrude, I've had to spend a lot of time really just repeating it over and over and over again. And we have this kind of joke now going through with our kids, particularly if they see mom going around with her script and learning her lines, and I'm like, yeah, Hamlet is so much of Hamlet talk, and then whomever he's doing the scene with has one little line, and then Hamlet talk, and then the person in the scene has one little line, and that is very much what both the scenes with both of those women are.
It is, but what you've heard me say this so many times, acting is 90% what we do and only 10% what we say.
Yes.
And both of those women are acting their asses off in 100%. Those scenes. Yep. Even though they are sort of backboards to Hamlet's what is like tantamount abuse of both women.
Exactly.
He obviously has some huge issues with women.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't call it misogyny, but he definitely has some deep-seated anger and rage towards women, which he, I think, expresses quite clearly and cleanly in both of those scenes as well. God gives you one face and you paint yourselves another. Is one of those key lines, I think, right there. Same when he's, talking to his mother. This was your husband. Now look at this.
Look, you now what follows here is your husband.
Yes. What did you do?
How could you? Right. And I think that's it. I think you're right. It's not misogyny. It's almost like he feels betrayed. He feels betrayed by both of them. He's almost perplexed by it too. I think especially with Gertrude, it comes of what? Why are you making this decision? It can't be love. For at your age, the Haiti and the blood is tame. It's humble, right? And waits upon the judgment. So what judgment would make you make this choice to marry Claudius? And so with Ophelia, obviously it's a personal betrayal because she casts his love aside. But she does so obviously because of what the directive she's received from the other two prominent men in her life, her father and her brother, and then realizing also this feeling that I'm certain is very prominent within Ophelia that he is so out of my league, he is a prince, and they're right. I should not be pursuing this any longer. So then Hamlet takes that as a betrayal, as a, you've made yourself one face. You said you loved me, and now you have another, and now you're casting my love aside. And that's how that whole scene's of her saying, you know, bringing back the remembrances that he has given to her. And he's just basically like, no, I never gave you aught, which basically is like, I'm done with you. You
chose
cast
them.
me aside. You chose them. And same thing with Gertrude. You chose him, or yeah. And so it is that, I mean, he says it quite clearly in that nunnery scene of it's this confusion and this feeling of betrayal that he has. And he senses it from the two women that are most prominent in his life, of just this kind of like, oh, they're, I don't want to say opportunists, but they're going to shift with the wind. It's going to be, I'm going to make this decision even though I'm betraying this person.
Is that an aspect of his youthful quality that maybe what he is most guilty of there is idealizing women? Like he's placed them on some sort of a pedestal.
Yeah, sure.
And they have fallen from the pedestal. And he doesn't know how to deal with that crushing blow. Is that an aspect of him?
Think that's part of it.
That's part of him.
I think with Ophelia too, right? You know, when he says, God hath given you one face, it's like this, you are so beautiful in your innocent, God-given self, but now you've made this decision that is not, it's like this, you've broken your innocence. You've broken this pedestal that I've put you on that is, you know, women should be like angels, right? It's almost that like, you know, I mean, that is like the old adage, right? That women are angels and men are beasts kind of thing. I mean,
Laertes says at her gravesite, a ministering angel, my sister will be when you are howling in your grave, he says to the priest. I'm paraphrasing it, but But yeah, so that metaphor is in there. It's just, it's Laertes who's saying it.
Right. And so for Hamlet, it becomes this, how could they be so conniving? They are women. They are angels. They're all supposed to be like the Virgin Mary, right? Even though he knows that's not necessarily just even the virgin quality, but the sense of
the better half of man.
The better half of man. The better half of man. I wholeheartedly agree that Hamlet believes that. And truthfully, I think it's one of the reasons why it's so compelling for me as a woman to play that character. There's certain elements of Hamlet that do make him far more appealing, I think, to a female actress to play than other male characters. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've probably seen more females tackle Hamlet versus, you know, like Macbeth or Iago or Othello or, you know, any of the other major male roles you don't necessarily hear of or see too much of. There are obviously some specific cases, and I know like there are some actresses who've made it their thing. I'm going to play all the men. And that's not my desire as an actress, is I don't want to play all the men. It is something very specific to Hamlet. There is almost a kind of feminine quality to him in the sense of that obviously his most incredible brain, but his tragic hero quality, right? You know, is that Joseph Campbell, the tragic hero? What is his weakness? His weakness, right, is that he is losing the name of action, right? You know, he can't just make a decision and act upon it. And are
you saying that's his feminine quality? Is that he's indecisive?
A little bit, maybe not necessarily feminine quality, but it sure does resonate with Annie.
let me try to massage that a little and say he obviously has an ability to process thought on both sides of his brain at the same time.
Yes,
in a way that most men aren't capable of doing.
Well, that was a beautiful way to put that, babe.
Thank you.
That was almost feminine of you to be able to say something that eloquently. No, just kidding.
Wow. Oh, I do my best. It's because of it's being married to you after all these years.
No, it's not. You've always been that way, and I'm sure I never got to see you do it, but I'm sure you played a wonderful Hamlet. And I think one of the reasons why is because you actually are a little bit more, I think, in touch with some of those more feminine qualities than other men I know.
Shh. You're going to ruin my reputation.
Sorry. It's a good thing.
I do think it's true, though.
And
I think that through Hamlet, we see a man who is as angry as he is about the women in his life because of his extreme and profound adoration for what is feminine.
Yes, I agree completely.
And I do think that is one of the reasons why throughout history, great actresses have wanted to play this role.
Yep.
That and the fact that it is the quintessential test of an actor.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is a female role that equates to that.
No.
That women could say, well, I did my Cleopatra.
Right.
Yes, it's a line load, but also Cleopatra's character arc is not dynamic.
No.
She has emotional extremes because that's the nature of her. Yeah. But she remains the same person throughout the play.
Absolutely.
As she did throughout her life. She's very self-centered. I am a goddess and you will all bow down to me type of character. And so it's not as dynamic. It's not as challenging. It's not a range of emotional demand like Hamlet is, especially because Hamlet is so much more cerebral.
Yes. Exactly.
Than Cleopatra.
Exactly. There is no character that is as cerebral as Hamlet. I mean, obviously, that's one of the reasons why he has so many soliloquies, so many moments on stage when it's just him talking and musing and thinking and working everything out in his brain. And he has this, I don't know, I hesitate to call it humility, but I guess it also is. He's so introspective and he's not afraid to self-indict. He's the whole rogue and peasant slave. Most of that monologue, that soliloquy, which is the longest, is him going back and forth about what kind of person am I? Why have I not been able to act on this? Why have I not been able to just say,
there are entire doctoral theses been written about that particular speech.
Oh, it's the best one. Rogue and
his
Peasant Slave
indictment
is the best.
of himself and how unusual it is for someone of royalty to refer to themselves in that many disparaging terms. There's like an entire, you can do an entire, like I said, doctoral thesis on there. There have been essays upon essays upon essays written about that aspect of that particular speech.
And I don't think you find, definitely within the Shakespeare canon, any other, particularly male, but female as well. You don't see those other really strong, prominent male characters, even amidst all of their frailties. None of them ever get to that level of introspection and self-indictment. I don't think any of them ever, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think any of them ever reached that point of going, what an ass am I, and what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Swoons, I should take it, for it cannot be, but I am pigeon-livered and lack gall. I am a coward. I am a coward. I mean, no other character spends that much time, racking his own brain of going, for all of the issues that I have with my mother, with Ophelia, with all of the people around me, I am just as horrible as all of them because I cannot make a decision to act upon something. I lack the courage to make this action. And then even right after Rogue and Peasant Slave, a page later, it's to be or not to be. And there it is, the big contemplation of, life and death, and that's it, right? So it's not just, that's a different type of action than that he is contemplating.
How much of that feeling is rooted in his idolization of his father? Think about the terms he uses to describe his father. Even when he meets the ghost and he says, king, royal Dane.
Right.
Right. And then when he's talking about him in the beginning, this two sullied flesh,
right.
He refers to him in
Hyperion to a satyr.
Right? Grandiose terms.
Right. Exactly.
And then again, when he's talking to Gertrude
has this whole
closet.
Comparisons to the front of Jove himself, and I like Mars to threaten
every
and
god
command. Yes.
would say this
every
was a man.
God would set his seal. Yes,
right. How much of that shadow causes his insecurity, perhaps.
Oh, I mean, tremendous. And by all accounts, I mean, we don't know really anything about the relationship that Hamlet had with his father, but it's very safe to assume, especially considering that Hamlet Sr. was a warrior king, right? It's talked about his conquests, his battle defeat on Fortinbras, the Gravedigger even, right? You know, it's okay. Oh, it was the day that Hamlet defeated Fortinbras in battle. Oh, it was also the same day Hamlet Jr. was born, right? So, you know, obviously he wasn't around for the birth of his own son. He was off fighting the war, as the warrior king does. So it's extremely safe to assume that it wasn't like, you know, he was the daddy that was around carrying his kid around all the time. He was an absentee father.
No, it was
as
Yorick.
all kings are. It was Yorick who was doing that.
He had borne me on his back 1,000 times, right?
Right. Well,
that was
Bloom,
Uncle Yorick.
Right. Harold Bloom has this great comment in Poem Unlimited about how, you know, Hamlet's kissed Yorick far more times than he's kissed probably Gertrude or Ophelia or anybody in his life, right? So it's needless to say, it's not, you know, and that's a sign of the times, you know, a king who is also a father, the son is the heir first, not the son. It's all about the preservation of the kingdom, so Hamlet, yes, obviously I think there's a certain level you could call it just love just on the basis of like, this is my father, but it is much more of an idolatry, an idolized love than it is anything else. It's not a very like familial, affectionate love. So he puts his father up on this tremendous pedestal of, you know, it's almost like once Hamlet Sr. is dead, he can do no wrong. He was perfect. You know, he was immaculate. And it's like everything else that he may have done wrong or any frailties that he was sure to have are completely gone from Hamlet's brain. And now all Hamlet can think of is that he's nothing in comparison to this immaculate, perfect father he had.
But the soul of the king must feel an affinity and attachment to his son because that's who he chooses to seek out and only speak to. Mm-hmm. And he does say very clearly, I find thee apt. Mm-hmm. And then goes on with his tale and says, this is what I need you to do.
Right.
Right. So there's definitely an affinity there that goes both ways.
There is,
or
yes.
why would the soul of the king come to his, you know, wayward, goofy Prince Hal type of a son? Like you don't see Henry IV going to Henry V, Prince Hal, and going, I find thee apt. I think you're going to be great at this.
No, you don't. But I think there's also, I do think that, so yes, there is a certain level of that affinity, which is a good thing to call it, because again, I'm certainly what, in my brain, how the ghost, Hamlet Sr., would view Hamlet as is that it's your time, son, right? And yes, I see the apt. I see in you a quality to step up, and this is not how it should have been, and you need to go fix this. It's not necessarily a father-to-son command, as I believe it is more so a, you know, a king to the former king to the heir command, right? I need somebody to go.
He doesn't command him go take back the throne. He commands him two things.
Doesn't.
He gives him two directions. One, revenge my murder.
Yes.
Revenge my most foul murder.
Right.
He calls it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two, leave your mother alone.
Yes.
Leave her out of this.
Explicitly.
She is not part of this.
Yes.
Leave her alone. And in that closet scene is when the ghost shows up again and says, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I told you to leave her alone.
Yes. Yes.
And that's an important aspect.
Well, and because there's no doubt that if there's any major love, it was Hamlet Sr. to Gertrude. You know, I mean, I don't know what the depth of what you might call Claudius feels for Gertrude, but there's a definite sense, and I think it's in the text. Even the observation that Hamlet has of, during this, the first soliloquy, to sullied flesh, where he talks about Gertrude hanging on him as if, oh shoot, it's late, and I just blanked that word, but she shows a tremendous amount of affection to him, and I think he deeply loved her as well. And I think that's part of it too, is that there's this sense of she needs to be righted as well. There's this, it's obviously the ghost is revenge my murder, but this is wrong. This is wrong. I think as any man would be, is like, what's she doing? Why did she marry my brother?
But Claudius tells Laertes that he needs Gertrude, that he must have her, that she is part and parcel to his being, and that's why he didn't bring down a more severe punishment upon Hamlet for the death of Polonius, was because of Gertrude.
Yes.
And the general throng really like him. So he kind of throws that in as a footnote. He's like, yeah, and the populace kind of likes him too. But I have to be careful. I don't want the queen to turn against me.
Well, I mean, without a doubt, there is like the love that Gertrude has for her son is immense. I mean, and I think that is one of the most, I truthfully, I have a tremendous just relationship with this play. I look forward to playing Gertrude one day and just saying, I went from Ophelia to Hamlet to Gertrude, because that character also I believe she absolutely does love her son, and that he doesn't understand the choices that she has made and how she is very much in love with him, just as she was very much in love with Hamlet Senior. That's how I perceive it. And I think when when Hamlet Senior comes in to give that command to Hamlet Junior, I don't think the ghost really thinks too far into, what the ramifications of all of that could be. I think you're right in the sense of that he's going, this is wrong, and this needs to be revenged.
This is to whet thy almost blunted purpose, is what the ghost says to him.
Yes.
Which is basically an indictment saying you should be doing what I asked you to do, which is revenge my murder.
And for someone you get the sense for Hamlet Senior, especially they made out in the text for him to be this warrior king, is that if the roles were swapped, Claudius would have been dead long ago. And Hamlet Senior is the man of action and would have been able to do that. And so I think there is this sense of that, okay, son, it's time for you to rise up and be the man of action. And that's what kills Hamlet so much, is that feeling of that he's not the man of action that his father was. Which is such a real and human feeling. One, just the comparison to elders in your life, whether it be your parents or any influences that you've had. But also, like I said, just the recognition of one's own frailties is one of the things that makes Hamlet so incredible.
Okay, so let's go back a minute, though, because there's a couple of aspects of that I want to get into. But I want to, before we get too far away from women playing Hamlet, I want to go back to that topic because one of the things that I discovered in my research, there's obviously the most famous female Hamlet is Sara Bernhardt, the great Sara. And Sara Bernhardt is, classically known as having played Hamlet for 30 years of her life.
Right.
Into her 70s. She played Hamlet from her 30s into almost 70 on both sides of the Atlantic. And there's also Charlotte Cushman. It's another famous female Hamlet. Sarah Siddons, the two Saras are the two greatest, right? All of them, Sara Bernhardt was the first woman to play Hamlet on film, but in a silent picture. So I don't know that really counts. I don't. So, but all of them,
a silent picture of Hamlet.
Yeah, in the great era, I don't even know how that
right?
works.
Yeah.
Let's do a silent movie of Hamlet. I have no idea how that even works. But anyway, what I'm driving at is these women are from like the golden era of the stage. They're from like the great era of the stage, most notoriously through the Victorian age, which is very interesting because the Victorian age being so uppity and stuffy and, collars up to the chin and sleeves down to the wrist. But yeah, here were these women playing this role.
Right.
Through the early 20th century. And then it kind of stops for a long time. And then it kind of revitalizes in the last 30 years or so, but only with mostly foreign actresses.
Yeah.
Including several Danish actresses because P.S., they're Danish and so is Hamlet and so are you. Yes. Which is also an interesting thing. Yeah. My wife, the Dane.
Not entirely Danish, but yes, it is. I do have plenty of Danish heritage.
The thing that I found interesting, and this is what I want to ask you about, you would think that if you would look through the history of women playing Hamlet, especially with that great tradition, that there would be more modern instances of famous actresses who have played the role. Like immediately I was shocked to learn that Maggie Smith never did it.
Right.
Judi Dench never did it.
Right.
Helen Mirren never did it. Like all of the great actresses of this modern era who I feel should have
right.
never did.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is.
Yeah. I don't have a great answer for that because if I were them, I definitely would do it.
They must have had the means to do it.
Right, exactly. And also just kind of as like a passion project. I mean, obviously, I think for those women.
Go find the director you want and fund it yourself because you want to play Hamlet before you die.
Right, exactly. I mean, with all of the, the women that you just named, especially like their clout and their connection to the theatrical world in London, like you can't tell me that you couldn't have found some theater, some director on the West End or, at the Old Vic or,
When Emma Thompson was married to Kenneth Branagh, you're telling me she couldn't have turned to him and said, I want to play Hamlet. We're going to go mount a West End production of Hamlet. You're going to direct it and I'm going to play Hamlet.
He's like, I've had enough of Hamlet.
Well, we've had enough of his Hamlet, but that's another story.
Oh my gosh. Anyway. That is a great question, and it's fascinating. I agree that there have been, not, especially because there's been such a tremendous movement towards celebrity casting in theater just in general.
We call that stunt casting.
You do see so many actors, prominent Academy Award-winning film actors jumping into a lot of stage work. A great example that just opened is, Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal on Broadway in Othello.
Getting great reviews, by the way, but Jake Gyllenhaal is stealing the show.
I read that in the reviews too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of statements. There's not so much about Denzel. It's all about Jake Gyllenhaal and stealing the show. Anyway, and so, and you see there's a lot of, when we were looking at, because we have an upcoming trip to London and we were just looking at options for plays of like, oh gosh, oh shoot, we're just going to miss Kate Blanchett in The Seagull, or there was another one that I was like, shucks.
Electra. Was a production of Electra.
Electra. Yeah, Brie Larson is in Electra, and she's like one of the Marvel heroes, I want to say. And so just
Electra is a Marvel hero?
No, that actress.
Well, there actually is a Marvel character.
Oh, see, I don't know my superheroes very well at all.
There is an Elektra,
so,
actually.
Yes, don't quote me.
But this is the Greek tragedy, not the Marvel comic.
Yes. So you're seeing so much of that happening. So you would think that it would not be too far stretched at all for a female actress to go, I want to do Hamlet.
Well, we just recently saw Richard Thomas as Atticus Finch in
Right.
To Kill a Mockingbird, and wasn't it Redmayne who was in Cabaret? We're going to see Cabaret on the West End
Eddie
when
Redmayne
we're there.
Was in Cabaret.
He's
on
not there
Broadway.
now, but
and so yes, there's just so many. So many prominent actors doing theatrical work right now that it just, and then, the actors you just named. And so maybe that's part of it. Conversely is, you haven't seen, well, I don't know. Helen Mirren was in that Phaedra production at the National Theatre, but that was over a decade ago at this point. Maybe those actresses are all like, we started in theater. We were doing this before it was all cool. We had to do theater first, y'all. But, not all you crazy Hollywood celebrities that then decided, I want to do
film
theater.
Contract or forget it.
I know, maybe that's it. Maybe they're just like, oh, no, I don't need to do the theatrical world any longer.
I don't want to learn that many
I'd be curious
lines.
to know, actually, when was the last time Maggie Smith, before she passed away, that she actually got on stage. And same with Judi Dench. I mean, like I said, I don't believe Helen Mirren has been back on stage since that National Theatre production of Phaedra, but I could be wrong. So, maybe that's it for that group of women, but that doesn't change the fact that that's actually, maybe they felt at the time, I don't know. I really don't have a great answer, because it is a little bit mind-boggling to me that we have not seen.
There's been a gap, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, more women of today's day and age taking advantage of that opportunity to go. Especially in today's day and age, like you said, now more so than ever, there should be no qualms about a woman going, I want to play Hamlet. But I think just overall, there aren't a lot of prominent women playing any Shakespeare men. And so that brings me back to the point of that Hamlet is the most easily chosen one. But, the only one I can think of that comes to mind is when Fiona Shaw played Richard II, too. Apparently, was incredible as well. But that happened years before I studied in London, which was in 2008. So that's probably like 20 to 30 years ago at this point. And beyond that,
Helen Mirren played Prospero in the film version of The Tempest.
You're right. There was that. Okay.
But that's also now, that's got to be 15 years or more ago, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So it is interesting, with how much gender bending is so possible within Shakespeare, and has been for a very long time. Like you mentioned, like some of the most prominent actresses who have played Hamlet did it a long time ago.
Okay, but when a woman plays Hamlet, it is not gender bending.
No, it's not.
It is a woman taking on the persona of Hamlet.
Yeah.
No one presupposes that Hamlet is suddenly a woman.
No. Though I did, when I was doing a little bit of reading about it, I think there was one production where they played with that a little bit, which doesn't really, I don't know, it just doesn't work in my brain. But yes, you're right. There is that.
You will be wearing doublet and hose.
Right. Yeah.
We won't be putting the page boy wig on you.
Right. We didn't go take Prospero and turn her into Prospera. We're not taking Hamlet and turning it into Hamletta. This is
weird.
Yeah.
It sounds like a bad Italian sandwich.
Right.
I'd like to have a Hamletta on rye, please.
But yes, yeah, you're right. I think, but it is interesting. It seems to me like the natural progression for all of the women who've played the pants roles, right? The Rosalinds, the Varelas, the Portias, is that the next step from there is just naturally Hamlet. Like, why not? I mean, I've had the privilege of playing Rosalind, and it has been the biggest role I've taken on prior to this. And when this is all over, I'll get to wear with a badge of honor that I've played both the largest female Shakespeare character and the largest male Shakespeare character.
Well, look at you.
I mean, this is definitely not why I'm doing it, but I think that, it just kind of, it makes sense. It's a natural progression to want to play that character as well. There have been other female actresses who have played Richard II. That seems to be another common one for women to play.
Very feminine role.
It is, yes, yeah. I mean, and
he was very known
true to history.
It's very true to history. He was known for having his male dandies. That's one of the reasons why Bolingbroke was able to usurp him.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's a mystery. If you were to, I was going to switch roles here on you for a moment here. I'm going to ask you the questions. If you were to, now let's not, take it out of context. Let's put in today's day and age, right now, if there is one actress that you would like to see play Hamlet, who could do it believably now at this point, who would it be?
Most of the greats have aged out. That's the problem.
Transport me back 50 years.
And I'm not really, as you well know, I'm not really well versed on the up and coming ingenues, the actresses that have chops that can become something. As a classicist, I'm very much into the actresses who earned their wings and have established careers, and they're aging. Most of them are aging out. I would say that we've been talking about other roles that women could play, and I would like to see a female Othello. And I think that there are several prominent African-American actresses who could pull that off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
I like to see Angela Bassett.
Oh yeah.
Take on an Othello.
Yeah.
I would.
Right?
I'd pay money to see that.
Yeah.
Like she first came to mind as like somebody who could just crush that role.
Right.
There are others. Alfre Woodard is a great actress, and she's getting a little.
Yeah,
she's aging out of that, I think, maybe, but I love her. Like she's a great
fantastic.
actress.
She is fantastic.
That actress, I can't think of her name, who played the African queen, the Zulu queen in that movie.
Oh, yeah, she'd be awesome.
I can't think of her name right now.
Her name too.
She
We're gonna
was
have to look
fabulous.
That up.
So I think I'd like to see that, actually. I'd like to see a female Othello.
All right, I'll take that.
Interestingly enough, I mean, just, like there's a place I think you could go. And if you set it in a, you could take that and make that a conceptual production.
You can.
And you could, I mean, who can make it a lesbian love? Yeah, it's already a forbidden love,
right? Exactly. Just take it to that next level.
Sure, you could do that. Not? You could do that very easily, and I think that would sell like hotcakes. I'm just saying.
I like it. I love it.
So there you go. I'm going to write that movie. I'll make that movie happen.
You make that happen, babe. Right, I think you make a point though of the sense of that Hamlet is such a, kind of domineering, like. Kind of scary, maybe role type of thing that probably any actress who doesn't feel like she totally has her chops is just smart enough to go, no way am I doing that. And also, like you said, it's a lot of.
So fear of failure? You think it's fear of failure?
Possibly, but I think that there's also something
shy
to be
away
said.
From it?
Maybe, but no. I think that, yes, the question about the gap is still mystifying to me because I think in their heyday, actresses like Judi Dench, Maggie Smith, Helen Mirren, who have a tremendous background in theater, would not have been afraid to tackle the role. So I don't know why they wouldn't have. And maybe it was because they all got started in theater. Maybe at the point of their theater roles, they weren't at the point of the celebrity status where they felt like, oh yeah, I can make this happen. I can do this, make this happen. Maybe the time by they felt that confidence of, I'm going to make this production happen and I want to play Hamlet, they felt that they had aged out of it. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But what I'm seeing is that I think you're right in the sense of I can't think of an actress in today's, that is like somewhat age appropriate to play Hamlet who would probably sense that, oh yeah, I have my Shakespeare chops enough to go play Hamlet, to go tackle the biggest,
Well,
baddest
so I think what you're saying,
role out there.
I think what you're saying, and I think this is a testament to your courage as an actress. I think what you're saying is there are men who are afraid to tackle Hamlet.
Sure.
And for a woman to
It's
take
even
it
more
to take it
terrifying.
on, there's a double
Right.
question there, right?
There is.
The audience is going to go, well, not only she better be good, but she better be good.
Right. That you don't want to go on stage and have the audience wondering the whole time, well, why didn't they just put Laertes into Hamlet? You know, like,
Ooh.
yeah. Like,
That's
no,
rough.
that is the last thing you want. You want them to go, oh, yeah, that actress, I don't usually even use the word actress. I like the whole all-encompassing word actor.
Me too.
I never refer to myself as an actress. I'm an actor. I don't believe that's gender specific, but what I believe is that if you're going to, as a female, play Hamlet, you need the entire audience convinced that you are the finest actor on that stage that knows their stuff to be able to do Hamlet, not then wondering, well, they have plenty of other very talented men. Why did they not just cast a man?
Okay, then that's an even greater testament to your courage because you have the triple whammy, which is, oh, she's only playing Hamlet because her husband's the artistic director.
Yep. Sure do. Jeez, just adding the pressure on.
I mean, I'm just saying.
No, it is. It's true. It's true. Yeah, still, like I said, the oh shit moment. What did I really get myself into?
You better not make me look like a fool.
Jeez,
That's all I'm
right?
saying.
Yeah. You know, truth be told, I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was also just because I know my my work ethic, and I also know that I'm not going to commit to something and not give it my all.
Well, and every member of our
So, I
company
think-
and every member of our patron base knows your talent. They're excited to see you play this role. And they also know me, and they know that I don't cast anybody in any role unless I believe that that's what the best casting is going to be.
Right. And I think that, you know, so I think for me is just kind of, I'm literally at that point of going, well, I'm going to play the best Hamlet I can play. I think it will just be up to the audience as to whether or not that was good enough.
Okay, so sidetrack for a second because I want to go back to this.
Yeah.
When you said, I want to ask you this question,
Mm-hmm.
and you asked me, who did I think should play Hamlet now? Like, what actor should play?
Right.
I thought what you were going to ask me, I thought you were going to flip, because you said, I'm turning the tables on you, and I'm going to ask you a question now.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to ask me, which female role in Shakespeare would I want to play? That's what I thought you were going to
okay.
ask me. I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
oh
that's a
boy.
good question.
So like if we were in, 1588
Yeah.
and I was performing on the stages of London.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a great
what
question.
role would
Yeah,
I
what
wanna
would it
play?
be? Have you
Well,
been
first
thinking
of all,
about it? What role would it be?
They never cast 6'4" men in
Never.
any of the women
Never. No,
roles. So
never.
I would have been like
Nope,
completely
nope.
eliminated right off the bat. And it would be ridiculous for me to play any of the roles in Shakespeare.
So height aside, what would it be?
Of the roles that exist in the canon, if I could play a female role, or maybe even two, the roles that I think are some of the best female roles are Juliet
Mm-hmm.
and Beatrice.
Oh, yeah, Beatrice. I loved playing Beatrice. Beatrice was just an absolute joy. I don't think there's
I don't know what that says about me, that I want to play a 14-year-old girl, but
Yeah, that one's kind of odd, but I get it. I want to play Juliet, and I'm, going on 37.
she's one of the most magnificent roles in that play, and it's a beautiful play.
And that
it does center all around her.
And I think, and truth be told, one of the reasons why we were originally intending to do Romeo and Juliet this year, but was an understanding of the switch to Hamlet. One, the discussion that we had of, okay, if I'm going to play Hamlet, the time is now. But also the understanding of that we don't have a Juliet in our fold right now. We don't have an actress that could handle what Juliet is and is, believably 14 to 18.
If I could transport myself back in time, I would transport myself back in time to see a production of that play in, let's say, in the 1590s.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a production of that play in the 1590s and see what a young boy
I know, right?
can do with that
Juliet,
role,
right?
At that time in those conditions of theater.
It's kind of incredible when you think about it.
And I would hope that when I was there at the theater, I would see Edward de Vere directing the play.
Of course. I know, baby.
So I would kill two birds with one stone, right? Because I'd be like, I get to see this production and I get to see him in action.
Doing his thing.
Doing his thing. Because I truly believe he was a great director as well as playwright. So
I think, and one of the beautiful things, and this is one of the reasons why I have such a tremendous love for Shakespeare that just continues to grow and grow, is that it's truthfully, I don't want to ever say it's easy as an actor, but the words, the language, the situations, the characters are all just so incredible that you don't have to, it's there already. The emotion just starts to come because it's just there. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've wanted to play Hamlet for a while, is because he is the epitome of some of the most beautiful language that has ever been put into dramatic literature. And when you're given that incredible amount of text as an actor, if you are giving the words the meaning that they deserve, the emotion comes. The emotion comes, and that character, and what it is that they're feeling at that moment, because those are the words that they're expressing. It's not hard to find it.
It's deeper than that. It's there's a muscle memory to it as well, because tonight, and again, like I said at the top of the episode, we're recording this right after having done our 2 nights of cuts and read through with our company. And as I said, we'll do another episode at the end of the run, at the end of June, and sort of a recap and share with you all how we feel it all went. But tonight, when you were reading that scene with Trisha Devitz, who is playing Gertrude in our production, when you hit that spot in the scene that was, for me, the most emotional moment on the stage, my body immediately reacted and triggered, and I started to tear up and well up and cry.
Yep.
And it was like clockwork. It was like, and I haven't performed the role. It's been...
No, but I know which part you're talking about because I felt it too. I even made a conscious decision not to go there, right? It's almost one of those things of like, this is a read through. This is, but I'm already feeling this in this context with this delivery of this line. Once you put it up on its feet, you block the scene, you put the actors together, it will just, it's going to become something
It's actually
great.
Like the third longest monologue in the show.
Yes, I believe so, because Rogue and Peasant Slave and the Ghost's monologue are pretty even, truthfully. I've not counted all of the lines to them, but they both take up a good page and a half of the text.
But when he goes into, look upon this picture.
Yeah. It's a page and a quarter.
Yeah, it's a good long stretch. He's chiding her.
It is.
But he is unpacking his heart.
Yes, unpacking his heart with words.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that moment.
And that's it. I mean, I love that line in Rogue and
He's finally allowing himself
too.
to openly grieve to her.
Yeah.
He's been concealing it from scene 1.
Mm-hmm.
Not so, my lord. I am too much in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I will do my best to obey you, madam.
Yes.
Like, he is holding it all in, and he lets a little bit of it out with, too sullied flesh.
Yes, to himself.
And I do believe it's sullied, not solid.
It's sullied.
Because it's painting the picture of the nastiness that he goes into
Yes,
later, an
yes,
unweeded garden that has grown to
it
seed.
fits the imagery of the
right?
rest of the speech.
It's festering.
Yeah.
Right. He finally, in that moment, is outwardly expressing his grief to her.
Yes.
It's almost like the little boy crying in his mother's bosom.
Yep. Exactly.
And it is so real and so raw. And it just gets me every time. It gets me every time. And I feel like the man who wrote those words held inside him such pain and grief that he wanted to express to his mother so much and never was able to do so. And that the women in his life who he constantly tried to substitute for mother figures all failed to live up to his expectation. That doesn't mean they were failures. It means that they failed to live up to his ideal of them.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing here on the stage in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
It's a beautiful scene.
It is a beautiful scene. I am very much looking forward to getting it up on its feet and getting it going. Like I said, those are the two scenes that I really wanted to make sure I had tight before we enter the blocking process, because you just, as an actor, you want to be to the point where you can really just fully embrace, now it's the time, the text is there, so it's now time to embrace the action and the emotion, and that's really what's going to shape it.
And you're right. He gets very physical with her. Or why else does she cry out, help, ho, I hope that will not murder me.
Yes, and it happens very quickly early on. They've just had this very short, and it's quick, boom, 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 right? You know, Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Hamlet, mother, you have my father much offended. Go, you speak with a wicked idle tongue. Go, you question with a wicked tongue. This like back and forth, do, just kind of jibing at each other. And then all of a sudden she's going, what? Thou will not murder me.
She's trying to leave. I will find others who will talk to you then. And he grabs her and says, sit your ass down.
Right.
And she's like, oh, I'm a queen. Nobody touches me that way.
And you have, and yes, you definitely get the sense from Gertrude that absolutely she has never, ever been touched, been manhandled like that ever. She does not. So her immediate thought is, oh my God, my life is in danger. Yeah.
He says so right beforehand. Let me be not Nero.
Yes, he does.
Right? Don't let me go kill my own mother.
Right.
So he basically sets the seed. He's saying to himself, I need to be severe. I need to chide her, but I should not hurt her. Let me speak daggers.
My tongue and souls be hypocrites in this. Yes, right.
Let me speak daggers, but use none.
Yeah.
Right. So that sets the tone for what's about to happen. And she does. She's like, you're going to, oh God, help me.
Right. Yeah. Because he does. He I don't think he ever has slips in the intent, but he does. He lets his anger get the best of him but then it comes out later of just this confusion, this, like you said, this deep sense of betrayal, because he just does not understand why she has made the choices that she has.
We don't see it, but she talks about it. And at the first, he seems very insensitive to what he's just done when it comes to the killing of Polonius.
Yes.
But later she does talk about how he weeps.
Yes.
Over the death.
Yes.
I think that's an important moment in the script.
Yes.
Well, it's unfortunate we don't get to see that.
Yes, he retains his composure, but he also, at the very end of the scene with Gertrude, has this line about, I shall answer well for this death I gave him. There's this feeling. It's a feeling. I get the sense that he's still kind of in this moment of shock of like, oh, okay, I have done this. And in that shock moment is also then there's that realization of, I will pay for this. I will answer, whether it be to, actions by the law or just, when I'm answered on Judgment Day to God for the amount of, for the killing that I have just done. But then there's also this recognition of, this bad begins and worse remains behind, which, kind of translates to be, this is just the beginning. And it is just the beginning, right? After that, he kills Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and he knows at that point that he's going to. He confesses to her that he has this plan to do them in, essentially. Yeah.
Mm.
And
he does.
So,
he tells her,
yes,
I will hoist them with their own petard.
Yep. I will.
Oh, it's beautiful when two lines do meet.
Right?
right? And I'm the victor.
Blow them to the moon.
Yeah.
That's one of,
Blow them to the moon.
Yes. So, right? So there's this confession of, I did not mean to do this one, and I will answer for the murder that I have just committed. But this is just the beginning. Which is weird. It's sick. It's this interesting thing. And like I said, I'm reading
once you have
Harold
killed, it's easier to kill again?
No. Well, he already knows. He's already formulated the plot of the murder of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And I'm almost kind of wondering, too, when he recognizes that of his payment for Polonius's death and this bad begins and worse remains behind, does he almost have kind of a premonition of what effect this will have on Ophelia? Because, obviously he doesn't directly kill Ophelia. And I believe,
but he seems really shocked when he arrives and finds that is happening.
I don't think he foresees that she's going to go to the lengths of suicide. But I kind of think he might have a premonition of, for lack of a better term,
she's pregnant.
But she's going to,
and I'm telling you, all the text, everything in the text says
I know,
she's pregnant.
Yes, yeah. And so interestingly enough, I think, and you're absolutely right about all of the abortive herbs that are mentioned in the madness, which obviously, yes, there is, yes, a lot in the text to support the pregnancy. And I agree with you in this. And so that's how we will play it. But I think it's still taking a little bit from me, especially because I played Ophelia twice before with two directors who wholeheartedly did not believe that she was pregnant. So I'm still you got to take with me is that I'm just working with that shift in my brain because I was schooled when I was playing that part that she was not.
As Hamlet, it doesn't matter because he doesn't know.
No, he doesn't.
So as Hamlet, it doesn't matter to you.
Yeah. But anyway.
He doesn't know.
Well, and the first director I had was wholeheartedly believing that they had not even had sex, so that she was still a virgin, and so
except that the priest at her burial says she doesn't deserve to be buried with virginal rites, and P.S. he's called a doctor. Not a priest.
Right.
So he would know.
No, and you brought up a good point. That is a very good point. I never truly had thought of that, but you're absolutely right in that sense. And
he probably performed the autopsy.
This is one of the reasons why I love working with you as a director. Your knowledge level of the text. And I worked with some incredible directors both times when I played Ophelia and Hamlet. I really enjoyed working with the directors that I did. They were fine directors, but your understanding of the Shakespearean text is just that much deeper than even, and those were people who were very well versed in Shakespearean text. And so is it just a perception difference? In some cases, yes, but I think also just the knowledge of that you have and the research that you've done, and also just the connection that you have to people who've done incredible amounts of research about that time through your connections that you've made through this podcast, is that you have just that deeper level of understanding of the Shakespearean text. Then more so, I think, than any other director that I have ever worked with.
Okay, so that leads me to my next line of questioning. It's a perfect segue.
Yes.
And be honest.
Okay.
Is it more of a blessing or more of a curse to be working with a director who has played Hamlet? And is that intimidating to you? Does it make you feel like, oh, I want to see the Hamlet I was, that I have it in set in my mind what the perfect delivery of Hamlet is based on the way I performed it, and having performed it twice back to back year after 2 years in a row, I got to improve. I got an experience that most actors never get. I got to improve upon my performance the second year, a whole nother year of study of it, and a better performance the second year.
Right.
Is that a good thing, a bad thing? How do you deal with that? How does that make you feel?
Well, I think that it's nothing. I think it's absolutely a wonderful thing to have a director who has played the role. I don't think that any director who has not played the role will have that level of connection to be able to bring to it that you can bring to it this direction process, because you know that role so well. So that is a tremendous benefit, and that's something that's very good. As far though as I have to admit, it's never crossed my brain to be concerned about comparing my Hamlet to your Hamlet. I don't know why. And I think one of the reasons why is because I tend to be my own worst critic, and I'm more concerned about my Hamlet living up to what I want my Hamlet to be than my Hamlet comparing properly to your Hamlet, if that makes sense.
That's great. That's perfect. That's the best. That's the way you should be approaching it. Now, if I were an arrogant asshole, I'd be like, what? You don't want to give me my Hamlet that I want from you as your director? You should give me what I want. But no, what you just said is perfect. You have to deliver the Hamlet that this is your Hamlet. It's not mine. I had my Hamlet. And when actors play Hamlet, and you often hear it referred to as, well, I've had my Hamlet.
Right.
And some actors will never get their Hamlet.
No.
And it is truly, the actor has to own the character for that production, or the production will fail. Well,
and so that's one of the reasons why there are a couple of shows, right, that you just do not do unless you have the absolutely right person to play that part. And obviously Hamlet's one of them. Like, you never just decide, I want to do a production of Hamlet and have open call auditions for Hamlet. I mean, I'm certain it must have, it's probably happened, but that sounds ridiculous. And
then he has 6 weeks to learn the role.
That sounds ridiculous.
It's a terrible idea.
Oh, terrible idea. And so I think because of that, then already going into it, for at least from my perception, and I would probably venture to say is probably likely for any actor who's played Hamlet, is the knowledge going into it that they would not have cast me if they didn't trust that I could deliver a successful Hamlet. So now we discover Hamlet together. We discover our Hamlet, my Hamlet, yes, in the embodiment of the character, but our Hamlet in the sense of the entire show. We discover that together. And absolutely, is it going to be very different than the Hamlet you were in? It is going to be very different. I am going to be a very different Hamlet than you were. I mean, needless to say, I'm a woman, you're a man. That already brings a certain level of difference to it, but also just, who I am as an actor. And so I also then just have to trust and know that you will, as a director, will not be so encompassed in what your exact perception of Hamlet is, and whether that be the Hamlet you did or whether that be the Hamlet that you directed some other guy in, that you will not embrace what I bring to the table as my Hamlet. And then that becomes that collaborative process of us discovering as a whole for the entire production, our Hamlet.
That's great. I'm glad to hear you say that. But I did think it was an interesting question to ask you because,
yeah, for sure.
And I do agree with you. I don't think anyone should play Hamlet under the direction of a director who hasn't played Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that a director, and it's not true about every play. Lots of directors can direct a play they've never been in or never performed in, and direct plenty of roles they've never played.
Right.
This role, I don't believe, it is possible to get from an actor everything the actor needs to fulfill this role without the director having tried it, done it before themselves.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's possible. It's like you shouldn't coach football if you haven't played.
Right.
Type of a thing.
Yeah.
You can't teach someone how to ride a horse if you've never ridden a horse. It's one of those types of things.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. Don't try to train someone for a marathon if you've never run a marathon.
Right.
It's that type of a thing. And this is a marathon for an actor. And if you haven't run the marathon, you're talking out of your ass. And if I'm the actor dealing with a director who's telling me, oh, well, it needs to be this and it needs to be that, I want to turn to them and say, oh, yeah, when did you ever do it?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and it's impossible then.
Right.
Have you ever learned this many lines?
Yes.
Have you ever performed this vigorous a role? Have you ever done this scene and had to emote this and then suddenly turn around and be right here again? Have you ever had to run around the back of the theater and then be right back on again and not be out of breath? Like all of that is for real.
My gosh. Thank you, Shakespeare. But literally, bam, bam, bam. It's, Rogan peasant slave. Page later, to be or not to be. Page later, speak the speech, I pray you. Like, it's just that whole section. You're like, really, man?
Well, shut up. You get to go to England.
More time? Yeah. But that's after all the big stuff is done. I mean, not
Well, he gives you a break. He's smart. He gives you a little break. You get to go to England.
At the very end, where you're like, okay, you got all the soliloquies
before the
out
big
of
finale, you get a little rest.
Before the sword fight at the end. Well, I guess there's
costume
that.
change.
At least I get to rest a little before the sword fight at the end.
You need to shed one sweaty shirt, put on a clean, dry shirt underneath your next costume.
That is the advantage that I have as a female and also just being the person that I am, is that I am not nearly as inclined to sweat as most men are. So even just a certain level of sweat for me will be a lot, but I will not be drenching.
Great.
Probably
the
not be
wardrobe
drenching.
mistress will be thrilled to not have to do so much laundry for Hamlet.
Just saying.
Wow.
I'm not going to be as much of a sweaty mess at the end. So there you go. There is a benefit too.
During the play within a play, which comes very near the end of the first half, we always set set the intermission right in there.
Right. Yes.
And I remember both Ophelias, because I had two different Ophelias. Both Ophelias, I would come over.
They'd be like,
lady, may I lay in your lap?
In your lap, and they're like, no, please don't put that sweaty head in my lap.
Do you think I meant country matters?
Yeah.
And then I would lay my head, and literally there'd be like a wet spot on their dress because I was such a sweaty mess by that point. Right before intermission.
Awesome. Very good.
Yeah, at least your affiliate doesn't have to worry about that.
Yes.
You won't be a sweaty mess. Good for you. That's awesome.
Maybe just a little dribble of sweat here and there on her dress, but she'll be
I
fine.
swear I lost 5 pounds every night during
water weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a marathon.
It is. Here I go. Training for my marathon. My goodness.
Indeed. Well, what do you feel has been up to this point the most difficult aspect?
Well, truthfully, the most difficult aspect is that as soon as I feel, I'm good on this piece, I can move on to something else. I move on to something else, feel somewhat confident with it, go back to the other piece to review it and go, oh, shoot, I forgot some of that now. I got to re-review that one. Okay. But then also going, okay, I want to be super comfortable with these, but I also just need to get a general gist of everything. So kind of picking and choosing the ones that I really, really spend a lot of time with and getting to know extremely well. And then especially the scenes that involve just shorter back and forth. Like, for instance, a lot of the scenes with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he has some longer bits here and there, but it's shorter lines back and forth. Same thing as with the scene that Hamlet has, very back and forth with the gravedigger. Those I have not spent as much time with because those will come pretty naturally through the course of engaging with the other actor through the course of the scene. but also wanting to be familiar enough with them that I know once we get into the blocking scenario, I've already got a really good, strong sense of where the scene goes and certain pieces and all of that. Figuring out that map has been the hardest part so far. Obviously, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I learned the big, important speeches first. And once I got to that point where I felt like, okay, I've got these, it was literally going, what do I do next? What do I prioritize next? And then also, do I spend all my time really focusing on this scene? Or do I bounce back and forth between this scene and this scene to kind of, get really, but then also going, okay, I need to jump back to that scene because I'm not as comfortable with it as I thought I was. That type of line learning. Loading
is a good word,
right?
Because you literally
loading
need
one on top of the other.
Well, yeah, you're loading them into your memory bank, and you need to expand your RAM. You really do.
And, I think one of the hardest things for me over the last 2 nights was starting to trip on words. It gets so frustrating to trip on a couple of words. And, we were just talking about this at the end of the read-through, is like, there's certain conscious of the fact that you're like, that didn't sound right. It's not like just modern text where you can be like, oh, I flubbed a little line, but I can just, there's not that level of poetry, right? This poem unlimited
the
to
meter
it.
is
the meter.
interrupted.
Yes. So it's that double-edged sword of like, oh, I forgot a line, but also I, messed up the meter, and now it just sounds weird. And so then learning to
my pentameter is off.
Yeah, my pentameter's off.
Yeah.
Frick.
I blew the last iron.
I think that's also one of the reasons why I have not spent as much time with the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern scenes, is because those are all in prose. And so there's less of that feeling of fright of if I mess up the sound of it, right? It's like, okay, the prose stuff will come, and it's less scary, I think, to mess up a little bit on those ones as it is to mess up on the verse, because it does. It jars your system when you mess up on verse lines. Because when you're trained,
it's like skipping a heartbeat.
It is, yeah. That's a great way to put it. Your body feels like that, and then you're just like, your brain's going, wait, something's not right, and then it's hard to get past that. So obviously the biggest challenge so far has been how to approach the text beyond learning those initial big ones. Then the next step of which do I focus on and prioritize now has been some of the biggest challenge.
Is there a risk to memorizing lines a certain way and then in rehearsal receiving direction that tells you deliver them differently, put more inflection here, put more emotion there?
No.
And is it hard to break that?
No, I don't think so.
From the memory chain?
No, I don't think so. And truth be told, actually, and this is a great conversation to have just on the heels of the first read through. When I'm memorizing lines, it's only to a certain point when I actually start imbuing it with the level of emotion that I'm intending to do for performance, right? I go through a process, and I know that's kind of like there's a little bit of a feeling of, oh, you shouldn't do that, because if you get into the habit of, just reciting it like this, that's how you're going to deliver it. But I've never seen that to be the case with me. And that's one of the reasons why I can, like I said earlier, walk laps around my office, like kind of speed muttering lines to myself or reading the text and just going through it. It's because I'm not, out there shouting to be or not to be, like, at the top of my lungs and with full emotion. And I think that's one of and touching back to what I said before too about my my love for the Shakespeare text, is that I know the words are there, the emotion is there. I've got the lines, and now in this first read through we've had was this sense of now I get to put the emotion in that I know has been there the entire time, that's just been waiting to flow to the surface. And so it was actually really awesome. It was really fun. And also knowing this is also just a first read through, so much more is going to be built on through the process. And I had to really look at it this way because I've never started learning a text so far in advance as I have this one, with good reason. So there's never been so much time of just like memorizing for memorization's sake before jumping into imbuing it with that emotion. And I'm not concerned about learning it and emoting in such a way that then you're going to go, that's all wrong. You will bring it.
What you just did there, don't ever do that again.
No, you will on certain things. Like I know, for instance, you will tell me, okay, bring me something new. Every night during this next few rehearsal process, do something different with words. And, until you find the one that hits or whatever, whatever it may be.
That is my style.
Yeah,
yes.
I know. And I'm fully prepared for the times you go, really, Annie, don't ever do that again. But I also know that, I'm not going to deliver Rogue and Peasant Slave and you're going to look at me and go, what was that? Don't, is going to be what, I'm just, like I said, it's going to be a collaborative evolution process.
When I shout out in the middle of a scene, like, keep it.
Though those are the best.
Yeah, those are my favorite. Keep it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, so much also, like you said, Hamlet's a very, or like you've said to me, Hamlet is a very active character. Yes, he thinks so much. He speaks so much, but he's also a very energetic, active person. But I can't do that level of activity yet without knowing the blocking and having the other actors to work with in a lot of it.
He may be the first clinically bipolar.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I bet there's a bunch of, there's got to be plenty of like psychologists out there who are trying to diagnose exactly what Hamlet had or what, right? What is his disorder that, never would have been diagnosed in that day and age, but we could diagnose now if a Hamlet were to come sit on my,
There's a great episode in the library. I can't recall how long ago now in our 7th season, but there's a great episode in the library where I do have a guest and we talk about bipolar disorder and the chances that Edward de Vere was bipolar and that he indicates that in multiple characters through the canon.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting connection.
Definitely not a far stretch to suppose that of Hamlet. But yeah, anyway, not really concerned about, learning something and then having to break it. I think I'm at the point now where I'm just ready to grow and explore, and everything that will be added in will be good. And I'll do some things that, you call the shit in the wings, and we'll toss it to the wings and we'll do something else. But it's...
You know how much I love shit in the wings.
Yes.
Because that means the audience never sees it.
Never sees it.
Yeah.
They only see all of that lead up to what became, the performance that they see. Yeah.
Well, darling, that is the goal moving forward, is to discover all the shit
that we're going to toss in the wings.
And leave it in the wings and put all of the beautiful budding flowers upon the stage.
There we go.
Well, I know it will come as no surprise to you, but the time has flown. As is usual whenever we get into discussion about Shakespeare of any kind, you and I.
Yes.
I hope you listeners have enjoyed this insight into Poem Unlimited, the play that is known as Hamlet. I know we didn't talk a lot about authorship at all with this play, but I think those of you in the know made all of the connections necessary during the episode. And those not gives you lots of fuel for fire to go dig deep and do some research. And remember, we'll be back again in a few months to do sort of a recap of this and let you know how it all turns out. In the meantime, if you find yourself in Southern Oregon during the month of June, you can come see Hamlet starring Annie Sable in the title role at Walport Family Cellars, Shakespeare in the Vines, we call it. Rogue Valley Shakespeare Company, Rogue Valley Shakespeare Company. You can find us at roguevalleyshakespeare.com, roguevalleyshakespeare.com. We'd love to see you come up, wear your Quiller merchandise to the performance and identify yourself. And it will be wonderful to see you. I'm there every night, oftentimes behind the booth, running the lights and sound. So you will find me there as well. And we look forward to seeing you here in Southern Oregon if you can make it our way. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you again in another episode. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for supporting the program. We love you all, fellow Quillers. And until next time, keep asking questions.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review in your podcast player. For even more, visit our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. There you can find official merchandise in our shop, as well as a link to our Patreon. This show is made possible by people like you. We hope you'll consider showing your support by becoming a monthly patron, where you'll receive bonus material and tons of exclusive perks. You can also join in the conversation on our Discord and by following us at Don't Quill the Pod on all social media. All of this can be found at don'tquillthepodcast.com, don'tquillthepodcast.com.
It's Dragon Wagon.